Vedanta and Tantra, the two great streams, is what we've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Concluded next week with the final class. This week we're sort of playing off the combination of yoga and Tantra and Buddhism, which is called Tantric Buddhism, because as the founder of SRV and my great friend and compatriot, like Six used to say, I hold joint citizenship in several different religious traditions of the world. Mm-hmm. So I can make the same claim in case of both Vedanta and Tibetan Buddhism, because I was initiated into both. And both of them in the mother way, that is, divine mother way. I got initiated with mantras by the Karmapa, green and white Tara, and then I got, of course, my main initiation into the Ramakrishna order by Swami Sheshananda, who was the last living disciple of Holy Mother, Sri Ramakrishna's divine consort, until he passed away in the 90s. So that's why it's both fitting and easy for me to bring in the Tibetan Buddhist teachings. So I want to call your attention right now to this one on your left, because that Great Seal teaching also comes out of this tradition and holds a lot for us in terms of other ways of explaining this non-dual truth and the blending of the two rivers of Veda and Tantra. First of all, the quote up here is, "For all practitioners of Dharma, this teaching is a priceless gem." So the Great Seal, the Great Mahamudra, I would say, and from the Vedantic tradition, it sort of instances this great seal of divinity upon the human soul that's irreversible. And it's brought about, interestingly enough, with another Triputi, isn't it? As you can see, these three great aspects of it. He says, the Mahamudra teaching was revealed to the Mahasiddha, Tilopa, and the Venerable Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, and was then transmitted to Naropa, Marpa, and Milarepa in sacred lineage succession through which it reached Tibet, as we read in the first half. So what is this Mahamudra? It partakes of these three great aspects. In the first bubble there, we can read, all manifestation, the universe itself, is contained in the mind. Does that sound familiar? If you've been coming to my classes, it is this idea about God not being a creator, but the mind, from the cosmic to the collective to the individual, is doing all the projecting. And Brahman, or Almighty Father, or Allah, or however you want to call it, stands back, formless, free from any involvement. God is not in the world is in God. So this is straight to a non-dual teaching, which clarifies the mind of superstitions and religious overlays and antiquated fundamentalism and untenable, unacceptable proposals such as original sin, that kind of thing. Or even the 7-day creation theory, if you're taking it literally, because there is no creation. God is acreate, and God is the only reality. So what you're seeing here is, let's see how many words I can think of for it. If you want to be kind to it, it's an expression. If you want to be a little less kind, it's an illusion. Or you could call it a false superimposition of form over formless reality. There are so many ways in which they describe it. A bad dream, or a dream. Also lila, which is kind of what I said before, a divine expression of form over formlessness. So whichever way the philosophers and the great seers have looked at it and how they've described it in different ways, the idea here is that in the all-mind schools, not all mine, although it should be all yours, they think of it as the universe has come out of the mind, hasn't been created. And it's not destroyed either. It just simply marches out. It's called projectionism, then is sustained for a while, and then is retracted and dissolved, like you do in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. It's exactly like that. Or the way you breathe in, hold a breath, and breathe out. It's exactly like that. One's the microcosm, the other's the macrocosm. And of course you can explain it in other ways too. Oh, there's a trinity out there doing it, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. The first is creating, and then the second is sustaining, Vishnu, and then Shiva's coming along and dissolving it all. And that's another Triputi. So in this view, I couldn't even get 5 words out of my mouth before I had to point out the fact that we're talking about the all-mind schools who believe or who know from their wisdom tradition that the universe is just mind made manifest. That all objects are just thought concretized. The mind solidified them into an appearance of an object, because science has even told you they're not that. They're vibrating particles. That's their real nature. And that's precisely why you cannot know an object. Vedanta says that. You cannot know an object. It's impossible to know it because it's empty. What are people trying to do? They're trying to know the object. I think I'll own this. I think I'll enjoy this. It'll be with me forever. It's actually come out of a thought of your mind, right? Clay cup, thought of clay cup. So the whole thing has proceeded from the mind. And the solidifying power has been your mind in conjunction with what's called Maya and nature, has put them together into a world of solid objects, which you're now playing amidst chaya, shadow playing, isn't it? So in your sleep, nidra, rupena samstita, the form, you see, you're playing with shadows, and then you must buddhi, waken up to it, as I sang earlier. So he continues, he said, all of this manifestation is contained in the mind, and the true nature of mind is the realm of illumination, shining with radiance that can neither be conceived or touched. These are the key points of number 1, the view. This is a part of the first aspect of the Great Seal, the Mahamudra, which is a precious teaching amongst all Dharmic teachings. You're going to have to move in 3 fields here, 3 bodies of the Buddha kind of idea. The second is errant thoughts. That is this penchant of the human mind to commit error and think in negative ways, are the antithesis of the view, and they get liberated in the Dharmakaya, that is in the teachings, the field of the Buddhist teachings. Awareness, the illumination, is always blissful there. Meditate in a manner of non-doing and non-effort, and these are the key points of the practice. This is distilled mantra for you that applies directly to your attitude, to your perspective, to the asana that you're going to take. People are all up in gaga about the many physical asanas that they can get into and twist themselves into pretzel shapes nowadays. Be done with that. Get one asana and then get this asana of the mind together. You need a perspective of the mind. You need a position of the mind. You need a philosophy. You need an ideal. And when you have these in place and they're based on these wisdom traditions, then you're fine. Doesn't matter what the body does. It can even die in consciousness, right? And it can go straight to these realms. And why wait for it to die? You can go to these realms while you're living. That word in Sanskrit is called jivan mukti, or you're a jivan mukta, a living liberated being, which is how you saw Christ and Buddha and Muhammad and so forth. Living liberated souls. They were manifesting their bodies out of an illumined mind. So he says here, awareness, illumination is always blissful there. That's the view and the practice, right? So you have a view that all of this has come out of the mind. You have the view that the mind is the space of illumination. It's the land of illumination, the kingdoms of heaven within you. And in that view, errant thoughts get destroyed. Isn't it nice? All errant thoughts get destroyed in that asana, in that perspective, in that loka, in that attitude. Now, the third aspect is, in action of naturalness, the 10 virtues spontaneously grow, and the 10 vices are all purified. The connections or remedies, the illuminating void is never disturbed. let me re-say that. By corrections and remedies, the illuminated void is never disturbed. In any way, and these are the key points of your action. So you have the view, you have the practice, and you have your action. A view you take, a practice you do, and the following through of the practice into action. It's got all three elements, and it's put in a non-dual way on all three of these, even your action. See? So the 10 virtues and the 10 vices may be there, but they all get dissolved, see, in that purified, he says. However, as they get purified, you're to remember what? That corrections and remedies do not change the void, illuminating mind. We were saying that yesterday at our choir session for the new recording for Vivekananda we were doing. That you can't add one thing to Brahman and you can't take one thing away from Brahman. Hundreds and thousands of people could die in a tidal wave, like happened a few years ago, and Brahman will not change one iota. Because it is the only reality and it's unchanging. So first word they'll apply to it, unchanging. Immutable. Read my lips. It does not change no matter what happens. So you can't come into the world and do good to it or do bad to it and affect God in any way. Good and bad smells pass on the air, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, but they don't affect the air only carries them. Or he says, there's poison in the snake, but the snake doesn't die. So however way you want to put it, this illuminating void is of the nature of changelessness. It's Buddha nature they're talking about here, what we would call Atman, or the Great Spirit, or other ways in which you could put it. However, you must be able to describe that non-dual reality with words that do not taint it or do not lower its ideal. Very, very careful you have to be about talking non-dual terms. So great words like deathless and birthless and non-transformational, immutable, unchanging, non-dual, homogeneous, pure reality, non-dual perception. So you have to look in English to find some certain expressions that match up with these Sanskrit words so that you're very careful not to communicate anything that's not the absolute truth. From that center you shall know the truth, if thine eye be made single. So you'll have to open that center and then, as we were saying at the break, make sure that you master that before you open your mouth and speak it. See? So you don't lead anyone astray or mislead anyone unknowingly. So you can see Milarepa here sitting and talking about this great seal. He's the great view, the great practice, and the great action. Now below that, the three principles of the central practice of Mahamudra is nice to go through. First is the basis: all phenomena bear the seal of combined emptiness and luminosity. This is beautiful Advaita Vedanta, it's beautiful Zen Buddhism, it's beautiful Tibetan Buddhism too. Simultaneously empty and illumined. Because when you meditate and you try and cut time away and you try and destroy objects, because isn't that what you're trying to do in meditation, is to stop thinking? Why do they tell you to stop thinking? Isn't thinking a good thing? No, it's good and bad and mixed. But it's not transcendent, is it? You can't think and reach Brahman. As Vivekananda used to say, God is brainless, but he's fooling us with these little brains. See, he does not think. We think. And in our thinking process, we manifest the worlds of name and form and time and space. So next time you won't catch me napping. In other words, I'll master my thought process, I'll quit projecting, and I'll sit in the void illuminating mind. That's how the Buddhism would say. The void illuminating mind. It's both empty and it's luminous. How did I come to that conclusion? Because when I got rid of all my thoughts, I sat for a long time looking at that emptiness, and in that emptiness the light came forward to me. I saw the inner light. I saw the ocean of sorrowless light. Ananda Jyotishmata. So that's what the meditator is up to when they're sitting, if they have been instructed right and if they have the right asana, mental asana. That's what they're up to. B, path. Make it effortless experience of the pure nature of pure mind. Now this is when he said, meditate in the manner of non-doing and non-effort. All these other things you've been doing take so much effort. But if you go into spiritual life thinking this is going to be something that I can accomplish with my will, then you're probably going against the grain. It's something that's going to happen when you lose your will, when you surrender. You surrender to this great light, which is. And in meditation, that's going to be, according to this school, non-effort and I say non-doing. Undoing and non-effort. So here's how he instructs you. When focusing occurs, focus without objective. As you're thinking, I have to concentrate my mind, and so you have an objective there, right? Well, try and do that without objective. Just let it focus naturally. It's spontaneous. When stabilizing finally occurs, stabilize without distraction. That is, let the stabilizing practice happen to you, and curb the mind's penchant to always go out and distract itself. Somebody walked into that choir session yesterday that we were doing the recording, and their mother's passing away. And they said, oh, my mind is so distracted. I feel like I can't think about anything. And I said, you know, they have a word for that in Tantra. It's called Shatavadana, thinking of 1,000 things at once. It's called fragmented mind. So, as Krishna tells Arjuna in the Gita, Arjuna asks him, he says, I don't think the mind can be stabilized. It's like the wind, it can't be tamed. Krishna says, I'll give you that. However, it can be tamed by abhyasa yoga. Abhyasa means constant practice. So by the yoga of constant practice, you can tame the mind. And when you tame the mind with the prana, as we were saying earlier in the first half, and these tantric teachings are telling you how to do it, then you master the mind and the mind quits projecting, and guess what? That's where the peace that passes all understanding comes from. If you ever wondered about it, you have shanti, shanti, shanti now. Peace on the outside, peace on the inside, and peace with the highest reality, isn't it? Another triputi. You don't just sit around and say shanti, shanti, shanti. Okay, let's go home now. See? No, you put that together with the teachings. Peace on the outside, peace on the inside, peace. If you meditate on that, you get a lot of realizations. For instance, you meditate on peace on the outside and you understand that it's just impossible. You'll never have peace on the outside. Your peace is on the inside, and you project it on the outside. And the same way with your non-peace, with your confusion. It's also on the inside of your mind, and you project that on the outside of the world. Nature just sits there happy, and you're projecting all sorts of angst over it. So great power your mind has, great penchant for duality, pro and con, good and bad, harmony and confusion, life and death. Great power the human being has in it, walking around. No wonder it's called godlike. In my tradition, the human being is higher than the gods, because the gods are fixed in their positions in these lokas. But the human being can jump from the lowest to the highest in one lifetime. Can realize itself in one lifetime. That's how free the human soul is. How filled with Atman it is. If it will only wake up to that fact. And maybe do it in the way of non-effort, see, and non-doing. Do it in such a way that's in accordance with spirit, effortless, thoughtless, pure. My teacher used to say it in this way: if we all knew who we were, or if we all know who we are, we would not need to do spiritual practice. We would not need a mantra. Mantra is not the ultimate thing. It purifies the waves of the mind so the mind can finally be still and see the light. Really, that's simple. So meditate on the illuminating void, which is both empty and luminous at the same time. It's not luminous to you because you're filling it with forms. It's not empty, is it? So this is where iti iti and neti neti come together in Vedanta. Neti neti is not this, not this. And there are a whole group of people doing that practice. And then there's a whole group of people of iti iti, all this, all this. These are two sides of the same coin, as they say. And here it is, coming to us again in the form of the Mahamudra. Now, when stabilizing occurs, stabilize without distraction. When shifting occurs, shift without grasping. As your mind, this poor person, right? If he's passing away and he doesn't have the teachings in his mind, and he's also doesn't have the Rinpoche by his bedside, and he's going through these signs of leaving the body and giving up the elements, the poor soul, right? How much he's going to suffer, and how what kind of an unconscious state is he going to pass for 100 years before he is born again, or 10 years, or however his soul has dictated his next lifetime. Could come back in a year. So, going into an unconscious state like that, you're just born upside down with a spank on the butt. And your first mantra is wah, wah. And you don't remember anything for the rest of your life. Your parents are there, you say, oh, you're growing, you're growing. Your soul's inside telling you, Brahman doesn't grow. Soul doesn't grow. Oh no, your consciousness is expanding. Your inferior guru will tell you, say, consciousness doesn't expand. The mind expands in its capacity to know Brahman. That's what's expanding. Consciousness doesn't expand. You're not getting the non-dual truth. You're not getting the real dope. It's soap on a rope. It's not dope. So these are non-dual truths you need to hear right away and set yourself in that asana. And if we did that, then most of the sufferings we went through in this life and most of the misconceptions we hold would never have occurred to us. Like the children of the rishis, or the children of the Rinpoches, you see, if they have children. As those illumined souls who teach the monks, the young monks that come to sit and meditate. 4 or 5-year-old boys sitting there for hours studying the scripture. Isn't that focus? Did you ever have that kind of focus? Is a 5-year-old child outdoing you in your ability to sit like this and concentrate on the truth? Or later you're saying, oh, I'm just too tired. Got to make that money. Death is coming, but I'm not even aware of it. So when shifting occurs, shift without grasping. That is when the consciousness goes through these changes, whether it's in waking state, dreaming state, or any other state, shift without grasping. Make the shift and just see what the shift means after you shift. Don't grasp at it. Let the dust settle. That's what they mean. Then when manifestations occur, experience them as reality. All of these manifestations of the mind, you experience them as reality. Then Jiva is Shiva. All human beings are God walking around on 2 legs. Nature is just an expression of divinity. Trials and tribulations, even death, are just challenges to overcome. And they make you stronger. When liberation occurs, allow it to occur naturally. Liberation means moksha or mukti. It's not something you get by practice. It's not something you get through evolution. It's not something you get through the passage of time. And it's not something that's brought about by the thinking process. It's already yours. You're born with it. Now just see how many coverings you've placed over it and tear those away. Strip the wrappings off the gift. Now C is the result. Freedom from liberation and the agent of liberation. Freedom from intellection and conceptualization. Freedom from false identities and freedom from hopes and fears. All 4 of those points under part C, you see. You're free from the idea of liberation and agent of liberation because you were always free and you never had to get free. I was thinking in terms of freedom and bondage, wasn't I? So I must put that duality to rest. And then he says, therefore, when I do, there is no nirvana to attain beyond, there is no samsara here to renounce. So, samsara sagarotara seta bandhureve gurave sarvalokanam ramakrishnayam om shtapakaya chadarmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam. So you have these beautiful, it says, Samsara Sagarotara Setu Bhutangrirenave Gurave Sarvalokanam Ramakrishna Mangalam. So this samsara is the first word of the sloka. See, that one who transcended samsara and who destroyed the ignorance of even of collective humanity. There's 5 million souls now worshipping him and following his path. See, this avatar of Divine Mother. So he says, built a bridge over the impassable chasm of samsara. That's the actual English meaning. Built a bridge over the impassable, otherwise impassable chasm of samsara. That's the avatar. So, no nirvana need to be attained, no samsara to be renounced. That's non-effort, that's non-doing, that's meditating on the illuminating void. And beautiful teaching of the Mahamudra, or the Great Seal. Mahamudra, like mudras are different hand signs that that you do. And so this is the great mudra. This is the great sign for all beings, and the teaching is a precious one in the Dharma, given to us by this tantric Buddhist lineage that has been going on for 1400 years or more. Now, we've looked pretty much at this chart on lokas, nadis, and transmigration of souls. We've talked about it in terms of the 7 worlds that are spread throughout it, correlating to 7 chakras, and the 6 chakras, and the 7th at the crown. We've taken the chants out of the Upanishads about these many, many thousands, hundreds and thousands of nerve endings. The only one that's not on there that I came upon is that beautiful one about there in the heart, where all the subtle nerve endings meet, lies the Atman. They meet like the spokes of a chariot wheel. That's how they describe it. Ratanabhau is the Sanskrit word. Ratanabhau, the spokes of a chariot wheel. They all meet there in the heart. Meditate on that self as Om, in the word, and then cross over the shore of darkness. God speeds you, cross over the shore of darkness. So they want you to arrive at that heart center, realize this whole system, this whole network of inner worlds, kingdoms of heaven within, and the implications of them, and then just move from there. If you want to add the Mahamudra into it, in the effort and non-effort and non-doing, it's just a matter of once you pierce through this Vishnu Granthi, then you will naturally ascend in that inward ascension style to the opening of higher levels of awareness. It's as if you are blazing trails yourself, like nadis have closed, nerves have closed, passageways are closed to you, and with the light that you gather along the way, then you put it, and those nerve ways just open and you pass through. So like a soul, you pass through into higher light. Those nerve ways are rather closed to the person who's going through this process for the first time, so he needs a guide. He wants his first conscious birth, and he's going to have to keep his consciousness while he dies. if you want your first look at what happens to you when you go into deep sleep tonight, you'll have to take your consciousness in there with you instead of just give up. Because giving up is a kind of bliss. You just go into deep sleep and you get such reflection there. And you come out after even a half hour and you feel rejuvenated for 24 hours. But dreaming runs you ragged. 8 hours of dreaming. So you want to, if you could skip dreaming and go straight into deep sleep, that's probably what the more advanced souls do. Dreaming, that's old. It's just like running the wheels of my mind ragged, and it doesn't mean anything in the end. Higher dreams, yes, maybe those have some signs for me, but basically what I want is just dip myself into the ocean of formless Brahman. Thank you very much. Ramakrishna said, like a towel that you just dip over and over and over again in a lake until it's just completely saturated. So the mind wants to go towards that kind of reflection, to a non-dual state. Otherwise, very difficult to have a conscious birth, and described so well here. And in this way, a duration, a bardo of 7 days to pass out of the physical sheath. I mean, it sort of tells us that the actual moment of death is not really freedom from the body, is it? That the soul's still hanging around the idea of a body. Actually, if you ask me, that's why I think cremation was resorted to, so that they would just get the soul away from the body, and it wouldn't hang around there anymore. So a lot of traditions prefer just a quick cremation, but even that may not be effective enough. You can still, vibrate around the atmosphere of your loved ones, and the homes and rooms that you're used to. Maybe not even just a physical sense, but in a dream sense. You could start dreaming your home, and it might seem a little different to you. Like one Swami told me, I went into a dream last night and I left $1 million there in the dream bank. And I went back there the next evening, it wasn't there. So it's not a very reliable state. Maybe the world, with its strange banking system, that's probably a little more reliable. Hope your million is there next week. Hasn't been tampered with. So the dream world, you can construct names and forms and worlds in the dream state. So your body is still hanging around the subtle body. That is your soul, your transmigrating soul. Remember, when we talk about transmigrating souls, we're talking about a soul that is not free yet. It's still dreaming. Transmigration of souls. So the ultimate goal would be to stop that transmigration, which means stopping the thought process. That's why we're connecting up these 3 charts so much today. Mastering your thought process so that you can cut time down and cut space out of the picture. Time, space, and form. Those are the 3 great barriers to a spiritual aspirant. And add in causation, karma, and you've got a very stark demand on you. Nama, rupa, desha, kala, nimitta. And those 5 things were always plaguing the thinkers about how to get beyond the body, like Lord Buddha and others. Name, form, time, space, and causality. Those are the great attachments, really. But your true nature is beyond all 5 of them. And probably only 4 times you get a chance to realize that. In deep sleep, in death, for a little while, and then in meditation, if you're a master, if you have a good meditation, and then also in samadhi. Of course, samadhi, it all goes away forever. So those 4 times, person has a chance to realize their formless nature or get a glimpse of it. And when they see that, there's nothing comparable to it. When we talk about praying, we'll pray to God for this and that. So I think I'll go ask God. God has given me a boon. So I'll go ask God for something. As soon as you get into God, you forget your prayer. Because there's nothing comparable to that when you see it. Prayers just die of their own accord when you see that. And that kind of thought, which has been placed in so many beautiful songs, is the impetus that can throw the mind into samadhi again if it comes out of it once. It simply thinks back at the beauty of what it saw, the incomparable beauty of what it saw in deepest meditation. And that will be a taste and enough of a divine aroma and taste just to cause the mind to go back into that state again. So having it once is piercing through the Vishnu Granthi. That's what I would say. Having it once, a glimpse of the highest truth, will be enough for you. You'll know what's possible then, and what's true and what's untrue. Beautiful songs again written about this rise of Kundalini. I sing, for instance, Manavaranasa Shana Ankushahe Nara Tara Tari Hara Chakshushahe Guna Gana Parayana Deva Gani Guru Deva Daya Karadina Jani. Kula Kundalini Guma Banjaka He Hridi Granti Vidarana Karaka He Mama Manasa Chanchala Ratridine Guru Deva Daya Karadina Jane. Beautiful spiritual force called Kundalini at the base of the spine awakens at your touch. The song says, awakens at your touch. That touch is yours. So it's like you get a glimpse of yourself and you say, come up, O Mother, awaken in me. See? Visit the higher centers, please. Kula Kundalini. Kula means the root center. And she's compressed there. And you see the yantra there, you see the triangle upside down, see? And she's compressed there. You want to turn that triangle back up, you see, and ascend and then descend at will. And you can only do that when you open these 7 gates. There are many beautiful teachings in the Kundalini system about the 7 gates. There's that book I wrote, Reawakening or Reclaiming Kundalini Yoga. Reclaiming Kundalini Yoga. You can see some of these charts and diagrams in that book, and you can use it as a guide for Kundalini meditation, and screwing yourself in the system, and actually getting some hands-on experience in it. So he says the beautiful Kundalini power of Mother awakens at the base of the spine by your touch, and then discrimination and detachment, they come too, but your higher glories are reserved only for those with pure minds. O Guru Divine, I offer you my devout salutations. So, talking about awakening and the practices that go on between, in the interim, that's nothing compared to that ultimate experience you have in Kundalini, where the Sahasrara Chakra, you arrive there. And it's infinite and indescribable. So, if they write beautiful songs like this by the dozens, by the hundreds, I mean, I've learned a couple hundred of them in my time in India, then there must be something afoot, you see. Something's going on there behind the scenes that we need to penetrate through. Talk about penetrating through, lower granthis, lower knots, and such, and getting beyond our ancestors. So getting beyond the animals and the ancestors, and getting on to the heart, to the real business of the matter. That's what you want to do. Now, I think we've taken these 3 charts fairly completely. I mean, you can always just go on in this. There are many, many very subtle teachings to this level of, like, for instance, just myriads of souls wandering in ignorance. And the whole phases of the moon and the sun, how they apply to the whole awakening, how they're symbolic to awakening of the soul. This, after these great souls reach the Sahasrara Chakra, they're Videha Muktas, Nityasiddhas, and Mahatmas. And those are 3 types of soul that are incomparable souls. They're just past masters. If you can talk them into coming back down to earth again, you'll see a Christ, or a Buddha, or a Vivekananda. They're past masters, and they've been, Nityasiddha means, in fact, eternally perfect. And Ramakrishna called Naren that. He says, when I first saw Naren, which was later Swami Vivekananda, I realized he was a Nityasiddha from the highest loka, from the Brahmaloka. He taught souls at the level of the Brahmaloka, and then he went into Samadhi, and for 1,000 years they couldn't get him to come out. And then Ramakrishna finally talked him into it. See? Come down to earth. And a beautiful song about that, that is actually worth singing a little bit of. It goes, Stimita chit sindhu bedi oti loki jyoti gan koti surya galai chancha dhale kanti cheno. And it goes on to sing Punya bhumi ahe aje Punaha nara narayan Punya bhumi uje aje Punaha nara narayan. I would have to practice it to do it well, but basically the sentiment is there arose from this ocean of consciousness, of timeless awareness, a magnificent mass of enlightenment which congealed itself into a small baby. That was Ramakrishna's birth. Congealed itself into a small baby. This is still in the form of light, not a physical baby. And he, to paraphrase here, says, he ensnared that one, called Vivekananda, in tender arms. And he whispered into his ears, "Arise, O hero, open your eyes, come forth. The ark of the world is sinking in the illusion of greed and lust. We must go down there to help them." There's 3 or 4 songs written about. That's by Swami Sharadananda, my teacher's teacher. So the golden child whispers, the ark of the world is sinking in the delusion of lust and greed. We must go down and help. So that's how you would convince a Nityasiddha to come out of hiding and take on a form. You'd have to be very convincing. You'd have to be an avatar. So an avatar would probably be even beyond these beings. An avatar, of course, avatar means that which descends. So this is why this is an upside down triangle. It's descending down into these chakras. Now when Ramakrishna, who was very fond of the Kundalini system and who had realized its truths, came down out of the Sahasrara chakra, he said, I only went down this far. I would not go down to inhabit these lower chakras. I couldn't. He said, this is the drawing room of God, and there I can meet with the devotees who love God. Now, Vivekananda, he could probably, it was a different temperament, he could go down and help the poor and the lowly beings. He used to say things like, I love my God, the virtuous. I love my God, the good. I love my God, the poor and the lowly. My special object of my worship is my God, the evil. So don't try this at home, kids, but this is what a great soul like that could do. It could come amongst so-called evil people and reveal to them that they too have the Atman in them. They've just fallen under that evil star, you see. And it just takes some, back inside of their causal memory, they also remember having experience of formlessness, experience of great light. But something on the way down, you see, on the way out, caused them to deviate and fall into these various nerves, these various nadis, and take unconscious births and have experiences of suffering. And eating enough thorny bushes, you get some scar around it, and you want to come back for more. People used to complain, so, well, Babaji, if God exists, then why did he create crack babies? I said, God, don't put that on God or devil. Crack babies are just souls who got addicted, and when they passed out of the body, they went looking for for parents who could supply them with that same thing they left with, isn't it? That makes sense? If you're addicted to something, whatever it is, then when you leave the body with that addiction, if rebirth is true, are you going to come back all pure and perfect from it? Or are you going to carry that with you? So you're going to come back with the habit of addiction to something. So that's where your tendencies lie. Now if you meet a holy person, or divine company, holy company we call it, and you have good karma along with your bad karma, then those opportunities are given to you, aren't they? Because we see throughout the life of a so-called evil person, say like Hitler started off a very balanced mind, but his mind became imbalanced later, if you read his history. So everyone we think of as being evil, they also had this time in their life where their good karmas were fructifying. And then, something got a hold, and they got off into some of these detours, these paths, fell under a dark star, you see. Beware the dark force kind of thing. Go towards the light. So in that way you can explain everything that's happening in this dream world of good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death. Then you should be able to explain it and understand it, because then you'll know how to avoid it and transcend it. Or make the most out of it when the time comes. So the same then would be true for the time of your passing from this body, so-called death. It's just a dissolution of yourself back into your source, like a hailstone falling into an ocean. That's all it is. You took that form of a hailstone out of rude ignorance. You thought yourself to be a form. But those beings who take forms, who know they're the formless Atman, they don't ever identify with the form. They're doing it for some reason, you see. If you can convince them again, doing it for some reason to take a form. They'd just as soon be left alone in non-dual bliss, thank you very much. Like deep sleep. See? You're just perfect there. All of a sudden the kids run in the room and wake you up, and all your problems come dancing back, you see. I was just fine there, you should have left me. Well, you may talk about your warrior. I'm all right with the world. I'll come back. I'm a warrior. I can take on this world and make it do what I want. Fine, but even the old warrior finally drops his sword and leaves the battlefield. And what does he do when he does that? Nobody can kill him. He just goes up the top of the mountain and watches the battle. That's his last interest. He couldn't be killed, so basically he becomes an observer, a witness. A witness of everything that's going on. He's got a mild interest in who wins and who loses. But really, it doesn't matter who wins or who loses anymore, because the whole thing was seen as a game. A battle of life and death, and life and death was now just transcended. So whichever way you cut it, you really have three choices here. You can be born in samsara and ignorance. You can live a dharmic life, or you can live a divine life and go formless. So there's three basically divisions. There's three teachings around them. Triputis are really important in Dharma. Three everythings. It's the twos that are stumbling you. See? The twos are dvandva mohena, deluding pairs of opposites. That's how Krishna calls them in the Gita. But the threes are doorways out. The third teaching is always a doorway out of the duality. And the whole thing proceeds by fives, if you haven't noticed. It's called the quintuplication process. 5 elements, 5 senses, 5 subtle elements, 5 pranas, 5-fold mind. It's all fives. The whole thing is put together in these quintuplications. And just came out from the source in that way. And then it's accompanied by 2s and 3s. Which are you going to choose? To get caught up in the dualities and go to samsaric life? Or use the triputis to awaken yourself and ascend? Live a divine life? That's for me, right? See you there. We'll compare notes later. So many possible deviations, and even many preoccupations of the divine in these other lokas too. ecstatic souls sporting in consciousness. You see, if they've reached this level of these three chakras, they're just sporting in consciousness. It's a lila. It's where divine lila, that word, comes from. Women like that so much they say, I'll call myself Lila now. See, I'll name my baby Lila. Hope you can explain that to them when they get older. Here's Kailas, Manidvipa, and Vaikuntha. You know what those are? This is the holy city of Vishnu, this is the holy city of Shiva, and this is the holy city of Divine Mother, the island essence. Manidvipa is Divine Mother's favorite dwelling place. So these are all located here between these two chakras. See? And of course you would go beyond such worlds to get into the Sahasrara. You're going formless. One song in India sings, "Have no hope for me for the worlds forevermore. I'm gone forever. You will not see me again in form." Hi. Come join me. See, it's fun up here. Sri Ramakrishna told this great story about three men who went to the fence, and there was a great hubbub going on across the fence. So one jumped on top of the fence and looked at it, gave a shout of joy and jumped in. The other two were standing there. So the second one jumped on the fence, take a look, gave a shout of joy and jumped in. The third one was like, what? So he jumped on top of the fence and started to jump in, then turned around and said, hey, there's a great mart of joy going on over here. Everyone come. So that's this great soul who comes down and tells us, there's a great mart of joy going on there above your heart chakra, you see, in these higher chakras. Come, jump in with me. Immerse yourself. So these, other words, you're staying in these very high worlds, and those are not subject to rebirth in the physical world. But you still have a form. That's how they describe it. It's very hard to conceive of, sort of like a dream world. But the dream is, you're very vested in it. Like I used to tell the prisoners when I teach inmates, because I go to prisons quite a bit and teach this. They're very good students, many of them. So I would tell them, you were in your cell a little bit ago, but now you're in this room with me, right? So, that's the dream, and here's the waking state. But before you came here, that was the waking state, and coming to see me was the dream, right? Oh, I'm thinking about something. I'm going to see Babaji in a little while. So it's the same with you when you cut the silver thread, the silver cord that connects you to the body. If you dream and the silver cord is still intact, then your dreams seem foggy when you wake up, and this seems real. But if at night you cut that silver cord and you left the physical body, this will seem like the dream, and that will seem real. Your consciousness has shifted to a different loka. And that loka now is filled with your consciousness. Just like 8 billion, they say here, people now are vested in the world, so it makes this seem real, doesn't it? Everyone thinks the objects are real, that pleasure is the highest thing, that money is the best thing to have. They all think that. Or in some way or another, they have to go with the flow. The going against the grain is not possible. Only a few souls can do that, renunciates. So then you can see what I'm saying, that cutting that silver cord, you invest all your consciousness in a new space, and that's where you are. And what you experienced before and after is dreamlike. So your dream's probably much more real than you think. But what you really are looking for is that state of existence that deep sleep simulates. Deep sleep is formlessness, and that's a third state of your consciousness. It's the M of AUM, Om. That's Shiva's business. So that's where things get dissolved. So at the time of death, you should be a master of death. You should be able to dissolve it, give it all up. I give it away because my true nature is birthless and deathless, and have no hope for me anymore, for the worlds. I'm gone forever. Here's my last message to you. Holy Mother, when she passed, her last message was, as Sri Sharda Devi was, do not find fault with anyone. Rather, find fault with yourself, if there's fault there. And then she said further, this world, all this world is your own. So she was in a state of all comprehensiveness, all pervasiveness, realization of the whole shooting match. Because she could do that in life. They said that she was a person who, in fact, the Hasta Amalaka Stotram means fruit in the palm of your hand. I could sing it for you if you had time. It's a long one. But it means fruit in the palm of the hand. So they said just like that, Holy Mother could reach in anytime she wanted in the midst of work, turn it all off, take her diamond essence out of behind her wearing cloth and look at it. That's me. Put it back in, hide it away again, go back to work. Who can do that? So absolute knowledge of her Atman, as the Vedanta would say, or her Buddha nature, if you want to put it that way. Her soul, with a capital S, the unchanging soul. So that's a past master. That's the mother of the universe right there, fully manifested in a human form. Shri Sharada Devi He Mata Mahamate Sri Ramakrishna Guru Deva Samprite. A beautiful song in India, talking about the divine couple who's come again. Rama and Sita have returned. Radha and Krishna have returned in the form of Ramakrishna and Sharada. So those come from very high levels of awareness. Avataric, they've descended, and here they are telling us in plain, simple, well, sometimes not so simple language, through their devotees. They have impelled me to create 250 of these so far in 2 years, 3 years maybe, so that I can explain this to Western devotees, to Western aspirants, to Western thinkers, those who will listen, and because we're all looking for something deep and profound, to get away from the mundane, to get away from the habitual, to get away from suffering. Who would have thunk that we should do it in the attitude of non-doing and non-effort? See, in the Great Seal. Isn't this non-doing and non-effort? Have you done anything sitting there for 3 hours? Mm-hmm. But just listen and take in. And when I created this, I was doing it in non-doing and non-effort. I was sitting at a computer going, yeah, that would be nice. I'll put that in there. I think I'll draw a line from there to there. How can I make this understandable to people so they'll at least consider it? Even a scientist could consider that when the atomic particle goes away, that there's another particle that takes its place called the pranic particle. And therefore theology and science could all of a sudden have a common ground to at least discuss things, you see. Because quantum physics might be all the rage right now, but it's not taking us anywhere. I mean, when you start measuring things in terms of nanometers, 6 silicon atoms on end being 1 nanometer, and you're doing that so you can create a car wax that won't let water in so you can sell it to make money, then where's your science gone? I mean, science, it seems like it used to have integrity. It was an experimental lab. Well, the experiments have all been done in physics, haven't they? And when you find out that the object is not real, it's not what it appears to be, shouldn't that be the end of your homework? And you should start thinking about what is real? Danur grahitva upanishadam mahastram sharam hupasanashita sanjayita ayamya tadvavakatena chetasa laksham tadevaksharam somya vidhi. Taking as bow that mighty weapon furnished by the non-dual scriptures of the world, fasten to it the arrow of mind, made sharpened by thoughts on reality alone. There's your new homework. Sharpen the arrow of your mind with thoughts on reality alone. Try just taking a day out of your life. Just give me a day. A 12-hour day, even an 8-hour day. There are people who are sitting for 8 hours in meditation nowadays, retreats. So try doing it not in meditation of the formless kind, but on the teachings. Just think about nothing but God all day, for that time. And keep it constant. And see if that doesn't make a huge impact on your life. If it doesn't open up nadis to new realizations. That's what a retreat is, right? And even at retreats, you let down a little bit for meals and so forth. Mm-hmm. But give 5 days or a week to the retreat. It's better than a vision quest because you've climbed enough mountains and dived enough oceans. Vivekananda says you can go to the highest Himalayas or to the Andes, or you can go into the Gobi Desert or to the Caucasus. You'll never find truth without a guru. A guru transmits you wisdom. You cannot get spirituality without a guru. This is a Nityasiddha coming from the highest realm who took an avatar for his guru and is telling you that. Can there be any doubt that you need a teacher? When Ramakrishna himself took 4 teachers in his life. Did he need them? He was a past master. Why was he taking teachers? To show you that you need a teacher. And that teacher is pure gold. And the teachings are the highest dharma. And they will destroy all your sufferings and bring to end all your doubts. Another beautiful song. Ramakrishna has come and put to end all these age-old doubts by his appearance. All age-old doubts are now gone. And so, do you have any more doubts about where souls go or where they come from? Or that coming and going is even real? When Vivekananda tells you coming and going is all nonsense, that this is all nonsense? It's a relative truth only until you reach here. Otherwise, you're just either wondering, a myriad of souls wondering in ignorance, or you're sporting in some sort of consciousness, but you still have a form. After you sport in consciousness enough and have enough bliss, bliss gets tiring. Now you want peace. Enough of all kinds of sporting and just come and settle. Happy like a child, like Ramana Maharshi. Happy like a child, like Ramakrishna. Owning nothing, wanting nothing. Completely satisfied and content with whatever happens. So, I don't need to convince you. I'm just a man sitting by a river trying to sell water. You know all this. You know it all. It's all within you. I'm just reminding you, in case you've forgotten, or even forgotten parts of it. Because connections are important, and following that trail of breadcrumbs is going to be hard if the little birds of forgetfulness have pecked a few of them. Oh, geez, where'd the trail of breadcrumbs go? See, there it is up there. You see. You have to jump these gaps. Connect the dots. But if the dots are moving all around, how are you going to connect them? See, you're cross-eyed with delusion, then how are you going to connect them? Got to be more like my rooster when I was a kid, you see. Put my rooster down, put his beak on a dot in the ground, his eyes would center on it, and he wouldn't move for 10 minutes. We used to laugh so hard at that rooster. But he was focused. Probably laughing at us. He was in the bindu. The bindu is the dot, He was having a gay old focused time. And he was focusing with non-effort too, because his master put him there. Until we smacked him. And he was his old self again. Raising hell with the neighbors. Chasing dogs out of the yard. Called him bird brain, by the way. His wife is called Dumb Cluck. Those were my boyhood pets, you see. I grew up rather unconventionally. This was in a neighborhood too. It was not a farm. So that kind of one-pointed focus, that third eye, see, we want that, and that will be this Rudra Granthi. Piercing that, you go formless. On the other side, you see form. and formlessness and form. No nirvana to attain, no samsara to renounce anymore. You've arrived. And you can see both ways now. You can see in and out. You got out of the river, like Buddha did, and sat on the banks long enough to see everything come around again. So you know everything's cyclic. When you know everything's cyclic, you want free. And that is true freedom. Nothing else can substitute for it. And many things are masquerading for it. But you'll know the real thing when you attain it. So with these 3 charts, we've managed to eat up 3 hours. And that's a Triputi right there in time. And we will look next week at the system of Tantra called Srishti Rahasya. That is how everything trickles down out of Chit Jyoti, the pure consciousness, or Nishkala Shiva. How the Tantrists think about the secret of creation, which would actually mean this mind-only school, how it sees that everything gets projected from mind. And I'll follow it up with teachings of another word that's much like lokas. You heard one word about akasha when I read the samsara teaching and so forth. So you've got several words in Sanskrit that point to these subtle worlds within us. You don't have those in English. Astral worlds, I mean, what could you call them? So basically lokas or akashas means inner space. This is an bhutakasha, space of outer objects, but there's a space of inner objects too, like your dream and so forth. But next week we'll talk about spandas, because that's the Shaivite way of putting it. That is these 12 higher spandas that are beyond, I think I brought it, that are beyond the 24 cosmic principles and what they entail. You could almost take this chart of the 12 spandas. Spanda means a vibrating sphere, very subtle vibrating sphere. They'd have sine waves like flat line or a little bit more line or jagged, but they're vibrating in such a way that they're causal or subtle or gross. If you took that chart and put it over here, you would find the 12 spandas roughly falling between the Rudra Granthi and the Vishnu Granthi down. So all these systems played off of each other, which is the point of this class, Vedanta and Tantra, working in the Samkhya, the Kundalini, the authentic 8-limbed yoga, so that pieces start to fall together. Because you don't hear much about this in Vedanta. So if you came to Vedanta, you'd hear non-dual truths. I and my Father are one type of teaching. But you'd say, well, that doesn't really satisfy me, because I want to know what's going on here in the world and why people are dying and why is there suffering, and on. The questions are coming and I haven't got them satisfied yet. So you have to go to a system like Kundalini Yoga to make sense of it. Now you have something to think about. And now focus your mind on it in thoughts of reality alone. And pretty soon you'll be like me in that respect. I don't spend a moment not thinking about these teachings. Not a moment. It's an akasha for me. Bhutakasha is a space of objects. Obviously, a lot of people are thinking only on that level. Then pranakasha is the space of energy, vital energy, where your ancestors are. And then manakasha, or sometimes they call it chitakasha, is a space of your thoughts. That they also take up a kind of space. Not height, width, breadth, depth kind of space. It all goes out of the physical dimension. Then the 4th level is called Gyanakasha. That's what I like. I like to be in the Gyanakasha, because I find that if I put my mind on these teachings, that there's no room for brooding, there's no room for depression, there's no room for doubt, there's no room for confusion, there's no room for sorrow, there's no room for grief. It's gone. So focus in the atmosphere of non-doing and non-self-effort. Just arrive there, stay there, never leave again. Pick your akasha and remain there, happily and contented. take the outer and the inner, blend them into one indivisible state, meditate on the state, pass your time contentedly, and be free. Is how Shankara put it, the great non-dualist. Om apyayantu mamangani vak pranaschakshuhu shrotramaत्र balamindriyani chasarvani sarvam brahma upanishadam mahabrahma nirakuryam mama brahma nirakaroda nirakaranamastva nirakaranam meastu taratmani nirateya upanishatsu dharmaste mayi shantu te mayi shantu Om shanti shanti shanti. May our bodies experience great health. May our life force flow unimpeded. May our minds expand in their capacity to know Brahman. For the realized souls relate to us that all is Brahman. Therefore, may we never deny Brahman. May Brahman never deny us. May there be no rejection of Brahman ever by us, we who are dedicated to the realization of the Atman within. And may all the divine qualities abiding in the scriptures also abide with us. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.